Hello, my name is Chloe Martindale. I'm a lecturer in computer science here at the University of Bristol. I do research on cryptography and I teach 2 units on the Maths and Computer Science degree, one in 3rd year called cryptology and one in 4th year called advanced cryptology. This video is just going to be a short video which gives you an introduction to what cryptography is about, and I'll also just tell you a little bit about historical cipher and show you how easy it becomes to decrypt historical type ciphers on a computer. So first of all, what is cryptography? So roughly speaking, it's the science of decrypting and encrypting messages. So what kind of message could that be? It could, for example, be a message that maybe Caesar sent to his troops saying where they needed to be on a certain day. Now imagine if that message fell into the wrong hands. All his troops might be slaughtered in battle, completely taken by surprise. So what does he do? He wants to encrypt his message in a way that the troops know how to decrypt it, but anybody else who comes across the message doesn't know how to decrypt it. So he comes up with a way that they agree on beforehand where this is going to work. What's the type of thing you could do? Well, you take each letter of the alphabet and you assign to it a secret sign, like a code. And so long as your troops know the code, they can read the message. But hopefully no one else can, unless they're super smart. And so we also use this idea of decrypting and encrypting messages every day. I imagine that most of you talk online with your friends through Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, and your messages are being encrypted in the background so that while they're traveling over the internet, not just anybody can look and see what's in there, because obviously you want to keep your messages with your friends private. It's not for the whole world to see. And there's a really beautiful example in our recent history of cryptography, and that is the Enigma machine. The Enigma machine was a machine invented by the Nazis which scrambled up the letters of the alphabet in a different way every day, and it was a way that all of the troops that were deployed knew how it was going to be scrambled so that they could decode it every day and get their orders from headquarters. It was a huge part of the war effort for GCHQ to figure out how to decrypt these messages. And near the end of the war, not a coincidence, Alan Turing, a computer scientist, managed to figure out how to descramble these messages, and we'll see a short clip about that a little bit later. So GCHQ is still working very hard on developing modern cryptography, which is building on this idea of scrambling letters in a somewhat ordered way so that our friends can still decrypt the messages. And they're doing that together with NSA is also doing a lot of work on it, and that's like the US version of the GCHQ. And of course, that's the sort of modern version of what Caesar was doing before. The way that they do it now is not that far removed from the Enigma machine, except there's even more ways of doing a structured encryption so that a friend can decrypt it without you having to physically go and tell them what the code is before they can decrypt your messages. Let's go back to the beginning before we get there and think about how Caesar might have encoded his messages to his troops. Okay, let's see one method of encryption that we think was already used in ancient Rome by Caesar. This is called, aptly, the Caesar cipher. So cipher, this word here, means something more general. And for our purposes, let's say that what it means is it means a special code for the alphabet. So that means for each letter of the alphabet, there's a symbol associated to that, and we use that to write our messages in code. Now, there's a very famous code that probably almost all of you have heard of, and I'll give you a clue. So for that code, to the letter A, we assign a dot. To the letter E, we assign 2 dots. These are examples of Morse code, and that could be thought of as a cipher, right? That's a way of encoding the alphabet, but because it's a famous way that anyone can look up on the internet, it's not a very safe way of encrypting your messages because they can probably guess exactly which code you've used. Now, this is not what Caesar used, or at least not what we think he used. What Caesar used is he actually used the letters themselves to encode the message. Now, how did he do that? Well, what he did is he took the alphabet, as I've written out for you here, and he encoded each letter with a different letter just by shifting them. So let's say that we shifted our cipher, we shifted our alphabet by 5 steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of an E, we'll write an A. Instead of an F, we'll write a B. Instead of a G, we'll write a C, and so on. Hey presto, we have our code. So this very simple idea gives us a way of encoding our alphabet. So how do we use it, right? So let's say that we're Caesar. What's the message that we're likely to write? Well, we might say, let's attack Rome. Now this is probably a message you don't want your enemies to get their hands on. So we're going to encrypt this message when we send it to our friends who are going to help us attack Rome. How do we encrypt this message? Well, we look at our code. We say the first letter was an L. What do we write instead of L? We write an H. What do we write instead of an E? We write an A. What do we write instead of T? We write a P. Now what does Caesar do? He gives a message to his messenger, and even if his message is found, all his enemies are going to read is Hapo Wapawig Nikia, and they'll think, great, Caesar's gone crazy, we don't need to worry about him attacking Rome at all anymore. Job done. Now, we know his secret trick though, and we also have access to a computer. Let's see how we can use a computer to decrypt the Caesar cipher. Okay, so now we're going to see how to decrypt a message that's been encrypted with the Caesar cipher using Python. You can do this yourself on this online Python compiler that I now have open, which is free. You just need access to the internet. When you open the website on this page, it should look like this. And we don't need this bit at the left, so we can just minimize that. And to run the code in here, you just type your code here and then you press run. So this has some code that says print hello world, and it runs and it appears down here. All right, but that's not what we want to do. So we want to decrypt something that's been encrypted with the Caesar cipher. This is the text, the cipher text that we want to decrypt. I'm going to write it as a string. Okay, hopefully that's correct. Now what we're going to want to do with this is we're going to want to identify which position in the alphabet each letter has, and then shift it by the same number for each letter and print out the text. So how are we going to do that? First of all, we're going to need a string, which is going to be the alphabet, so that we can tell Python to find the position of the letters in the alphabet. Hopefully that's the right length. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to loop over every possible shift, because we don't know which one is the correct one, but there's only 26. So we can just list all 26 possibilities, and hopefully exactly one of them will be in English. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say loop over every possible shift. So there's 26 different ones. So this range will start at 0 and end at 25. I'm going to want to try and produce some plain text. So I'm going to first, for each one, generate an empty string, and then I'm going to add to it letter by letter. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to loop over the letters in the ciphertext. For each letter, first of all, I need to know its index in the alphabet. And then I want to add to the plain text what I'm hoping will be the plain text. Not that one, but I'm going to take that one and then add to it this shift. Now I have to be a little bit clever, because if I end up with, say, index is 20 and shift is 10, then this is now going to look for the 30th letter of the alphabet. And of course that doesn't exist. What did we do? Well, we looped back to the beginning after 26 steps. And there's a Python command for this that says loop after 26 steps. So the percent means loop after, and then here we choose 26. And if we did loop after 10, it would loop after, if we did percent 10, it would loop after 10. Okay, so you can see that one letter at a time, it's going to add something to my plain text. Oops. And then for each shift, I want to print the plain text that comes out. Now, hopefully exactly one of these will be the thing we're looking for, and we can just recognize that when we see the list. So let's have a look. So then you see all the possible different outcomes of this code, and let's expand it so we can see it a little better. And then we see exactly one of these is in plain English, and that's this one here. Let's attack Rome. So then we've recovered the plain text from the ciphertext by just checking every single option and finding the one that made sense. So that was just a quick idea of how to use Python to decrypt the Caesar cipher. You can, of course, with access to a computer, do a lot more complicated encryption and decryption algorithms, which you can learn all about on our degree course. I hope you enjoyed this short introduction to cryptography, and perhaps we'll meet each other next year.